Sports Talk Chicago. Here with Jon Zaghloul, and we are back and ready for today's special guest. He's an NBA.com writer, contributor to NBA TV, and he's covered basketball for 13 years. Please welcome Mark Medina to the program. Mark, it's great to have you on. How are you?
John, always good talking with you.
So, Mark, what's your evaluation of the Bulls so far this season?
Wow, they've been pretty impressive. I thought going into this season, clearly they're not going to be a lottery team anymore. I thought that they were going to be in the mix as one of the playoff teams, but I didn't see them as part of the first tier of the Eastern Conference teams. But I think that they have thrust themselves in there. You know, part of it's a little bit of Milwaukee hasn't played its best basketball. The Brooklyn Nets, they're still without Kyrie Irving, and who knows when or if he'll come back because of his refusal to get vaccinated. But I think the Bulls have checked all the boxes where they've gotten the best out of DeMar DeRozan, Alex Caruso, and Nikola Vucevic, besides that, hiccup with him being out because of the health and safety protocols, while also making sure that Zach LaVine is Zach LaVine. And I think that has been, a tremendous reflection on all those players involved because you have a bunch of skilled players that are arriving, in addition to Lonzo Ball, that are trying to prove themselves and have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder because of things not working out with their previous team. But they had an incumbent all-star with Zach LaVine, who had not received an extension up to this point. And so I wondered, would there be a little bit of some personalities to sort out? And I think, at least some X's and O's to sort out. And so far, it's been pretty smooth sailing. It's been impressive, to say the least, as far as how they've been playing.
How do you explain their ascent from last year? I mean, they had Vucevic and LaVine last year. They had Lonzo Ball and DeMar DeRozan, and things are much better. How do you explain that?
Yeah, well, I think it taps into, obviously, they upgraded the roster. So talent itself always gives you a chance. I think a lot of it's also the personalities, where when you look at the new additions with Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso and DeMar DeRozan specifically, they're really kind of put your head down and work kind of guys. They're a little more introverted than extroverted. And also, they're coming off of playing for teams that it had either recognized their value but didn't want to pay them monetarily, a la Alex Caruso, or, players like DeMar and Lonzo, where, their previous team saw their talent but didn't necessarily feel like they were a good fit. So all those guys have something to prove. They're playing with an edge. And I think as a result of that, you're really seeing them excel defensively. And because of the amenable personalities that they have, I think that has translated them not having issues of, how do you share one basketball? So it's been a really good combination.
What did you see from them in the Lakers win that really impressed you?
I saw what did I see from them specifically when they beat the Lakers?
Yes.
Well, I couldn't help but think about Alex Caruso because this was the homecoming for him, and it was really illustrative that his stat numbers itself weren't really that high, but his plus minus was out of this world, and that is what Alex Caruso does. And it was also, I think, a painful reminder for the Lakers of what they missed. And you know what? They only had themselves to blame for that because Alex Caruso wanted to come back even when he got the generous offer that the Bulls handed to him. He wanted to see, is there any way not only could the Lakers match, but, maybe even meet some sort of halfway in between, because he really liked being with the Lakers, winning a championship with them 2 years ago. And the fact that, that's the organization that placed trust in him as a two-way player in the G League. And, the Lakers, frankly, just said no, and their actions spoke that they cared more about saving on their luxury tax bill than keeping a core player on a championship team. And look, I know I'm not mistaken here of who Alex Caruso is. It's not like he's an all-star player. The Lakers' fortunes or lack thereof this season will rest on how healthy and effective LeBron James and Anthony Davis are. But, within all the different variables that the Lakers were sifting through, they should have just crystallized it. It's all about what can you do to maximize LeBron James's championship window, and what can you do to make life easier for him on the court. And Alex Caruso checks all those boxes. So very inexcusable that they didn't keep him. And so, I think because of that storyline, I think it just brought all those elements, uh, into a reminder and wrapped things up in a bow of just kind of the symbolism of it all.
How close is that window to closing for LeBron?
Well, it's an interesting question because I've learned in this past decade you don't bet against LeBron James. He's still a really good player, but look, he's turning 37 December 30th. He has been dealing with a number of injuries this season, and now he's out because of the COVID health and safety protocols. So, he hasn't had a lot of on court time. He hasn't had a lot of time to get the chemistry going with Russell Westbrook and 11 other new players, and he hasn't had that time to build a rhythm. And so, I don't ever want to bet against LeBron, but the reality is, even if he plays at his best, the Lakers have had so many issues that I don't even think that's enough. So I'll be honest, I don't bet against LeBron, but I think as far as the championship window, I think it's shut. I think that these are the amount of rings that he's already won, which is 4, and that's a great accomplishment. But knowing how LeBron is, he certainly wanted to get 5, 6, maybe even beyond.
Mark Medina here on Sports Talk Chicago. Mark, how do you explain what's happened to LeBron's window? Why is it closed this year for the Lakers?
Well, I think it has more to do with the Lakers than him. And maybe it partly relates to him in general, where, look, when the Lakers talked about getting Russell Westbrook and revamping the roster, they sold it as, hey, Russell Westbrook's a great all-star talent, and he's someone that can make life easier if and when LeBron and AD are hurt or need rest, or at least have the burden lifted during the regular season. But LeBron played a role in this. And so, I think LeBron's partly to blame, the fact that he's proven that he's an A-plus player, but his GM skills aren't the greatest. But I think the bigger thing is you have a front office that can say no to players, even if it is LeBron James. And so the championship window has more to do with the roster construction than any of LeBron James's physical decline. I mean, you don't want to discount the injuries, but in fairness to him, when he has been on the court, he's been playing really well. And I don't want to act like, he's 21 years old, but I haven't noticed anything from the from the observant eye that shows that he's dropped off. But it is a reality that he has missed a lot of games. And even when he has been on the floor, the Lakers just haven't been good. They're a team that's always been barely above or below 500. And, that might be enough to get in the play-in tournament or the playoffs, but that's not what the Lakers are all about. They're about championships.
What's your evaluation of the Russell Westbrook move today?
I think it's a failure. And look, hindsight, you can always say it's 2020 when the move was made. I thought that there was a recipe for it to work out. But I also saw the high risk nature of it because of Russ's playing style, the fact that, the Lakers, even if they fulfill positional needs with their outside shooting and wing defense, that it's a lot of new players and a lot of the players are old. So there is this recipe of what's happened so far, of a lot of injuries and a lot of hiccups of Russ finding his comfort level. And I put a lot of blame not only on the roster construction, but on Russ himself. I mean, look, the Lakers were willing to roll the dice on this because they thought, if nothing else, even when you account for hiccups, possible injuries, other new players, he's an all-star player and he's had regular season success that could at least lead to wins. And that hasn't happened on a consistent basis. And even if you add in the injuries and the new players, circumstances define role player success. It shouldn't define all-star player success. So the last I checked, Russell Westbrook should be an all-star player. So he hasn't lived up to that, to say the least.
Is that a reflection on potentially decline for Russell Westbrook? Is his hype overbearing when it comes to his performance and what he's put on the court?
I think in fairness to Russ, he's still plays at a fast speed. I think that's one of the benefits when he has played good games that the Lakers have enjoyed, the fact that they are getting up and down faster and getting some easy baskets. So I haven't noticed a physical decline, but I think where the rubber meets the road is he's a guy that even if he says he has the right intentions of wanting to make this work and wanting to, give himself the best chance to get his first title, it's hard for him to adjust his style of play. Look, he doesn't know how to play without committing a lot of turnovers. He doesn't know how to play without missing a lot of shots and kind of being inefficient. And again, if you're an all-star player, you're supposed to be able to not only make adjustments to account for when you get older and how to be more efficient, but you also have to know how to make adjustments when you're playing with new players. I mean, when you're looking at, LeBron James, for example, through his warts or roster construction warts, he's had a track record of still just being able to rely on his sheer will and talent to kind of cover up those shortcomings and use his will to just drag his teams through success. And, Russ hasn't been able to do that. So, and I think that's the thing that's even more interesting and maybe even more concerning, that it's not a health issue. It is a style of play issue. And Russ so far has shown much more misses in being able to do that than makes this season.
Did you see this coming when they signed him?
Well, as I mentioned before, I had written that this was a high-risk move, but I also thought it could be a high-reward move. I thought that it could work. I was leaning more on the optimistic side because of Russ's stage of his career, the fact that, you have LeBron James and Anthony Davis and they're healthier. But I didn't think that they would have the record the way it is. I thought that, assuming that there would be some chemistry hiccups and a few injuries here or there, even with LeBron, that they would be a team that would be, third or fourth in the West and, having a comfortable win-loss record. And here that's not the case. I mean, they're a team that has yet to have a dominant win against anyone. And the games that they've won, it's been because they've scratched and clawed their way to them. And there's been a few overtime games, and most of those overtime games were against bad teams. The only game that I was left, kind of feeling impressed with their play was against the Miami Heat. That's the only game out of the entire season. That's not a good thing. You have, 3 All-Stars and 4 players that were on the NBA top 75 list. And, if you're a Dwight Howard fan, maybe even 5 that should have been on the list. So, yeah, it's inexcusable.
Let me ask you this. Who's the team to beat right now in the Western Conference?
Yeah, flip a coin between the Warriors and the Suns. I know that the Suns beat the Warriors, yesterday, but, it's such an even matchup that I think that they're destined to meet each other in West Finals, 7-game series. And it comes down to, the pecking order of who's the healthiest, whose chemistry is the best. But, they have continuity from top to bottom, a lot of good experience and top-heavy talent, with the Warriors, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson coming back. With the Suns, Chris Paul and Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. But they have a lot of good role players that have, been on the team in previous years that know what their role is and do it well. And they both have great head coaches, Steve Kerr with the Warriors, Monty Williams with the Suns, that, as of now, I would give the edge to the Warriors, just knowing that if and when they be in the playoffs, they're going to have Klay Thompson on that team now. But, yeah, you could really make a case for either. It should be a fun matchup.
Who do you see in the finals? Is it too early to make that prediction?
Well, with the caveat that injuries are always a game changer, all things being equal right now, I would say the Warriors go to the finals, and then it would be Brooklyn if Kyrie Irving ever gets the vaccine, and if not, I see the Bucks coming back. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. And here's the thing. I mean, with the Nets, there's this cliche with 20 game sample sizes. That's a usual time that you can get a sense of what a team's all about and if they're heading the right direction. 20 games in, and Kyrie Irving still hasn't gotten the vaccine. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't at all throughout this season. But he's unpredictable. So we'll see.
Mark Medina, still here on Sports Talk Chicago. Mark, a few more questions before we finish up. First off, NBA.com, how did it happen?
Yeah, great opportunity. There was an opening. We talked, and the stars kind of aligned that they were looking for a writer based in Los Angeles that can cover the scene nationally and also use LA as a home base. And that's what I was already doing anyway at USA Today. And they're also looking for someone to do some TV work for them for NBA TV. And I had already done and still do that for Spectrum Sportsnet and NBC LA and occasionally on Fox Sports. So it was a win-win. So the more I got to know about their culture and the way they operate and the fact that there's, a good comfort level of their editorial independence, from the league, I thought it was, too good of an opportunity to pass up. And so fortunately they felt the same way about me and presented an offer. And then, I mulled it over and wound up taking it, and really thankful and very grateful that this all happened. It's been a blast.
How special is it to work for the NBA now?
Well, that's the thing. I don't work for the NBA. I work for NBAcom. It's not like Adam Silver's my sports editor, right? So, frankly, I did have questions about that because,
Sure.
I got into business not to be a public relations person. I got in the business to be a sports writer with, level of journalistic independence. And yeah, they had the same journalistic standards that my other former employers had. So, I was pretty comfortable with it. So it's been fun. And that being said, there are layers to a relationship because, it is the league website and, they show the games on their channel. But yeah, Adam has a league to run. He doesn't get involved with what stories we do or don't write.
And Mark, before we finish up today, last question. What's the best soundbite you've gotten from a player?
Oh, wow. The NBA has so many great personalities. It's hard to pick one. But, in my time covering the NBA, I would say that, Meta World Peace, Ron Artest, and Nick Young, I mean, they were walking quotes. They're very funny, quotable, random, goofy. They would say off the wall things, but they're also interesting guys. So yeah, I would say those two were the most quotable. But to pick one out of all that, I guess it was, the best one was, when Ron Artest won the championship in 2010 with the Lakers, and he had his famous press conference where, he was being goofy and getting so excited with a Wheaties box being on the press table, but then also, I think shedding light on some really serious issues of, thanking his psychologist and therapist and, really shedding light on mental health. And, I know the impact that has had on, that issue itself with how it's opened the conversation. So that would probably be the most memorable because of the comedic value, but also the substance as well. But yeah, it's a fun league to cover because there's a lot of them.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for joining me. Always a pleasure to have you on. Best wishes at the new gig, and I'm sure we'll be catching up very soon to talk more NBA. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, really appreciate talking with you as always, and it's always a fun time.